Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the doorbell rang, interrupting the quiet hum of my kettle on the stove. I wasn't expecting anyone, especially not my son-in-law, Greg. I opened the door with a dish towel in my hand, still drying my fingers, and there he stood, 6 foot tall with that gentle smile he always wore, holding a paper bag from the local bakery. "Thought I'd drop by," he said, raising the bag a little. "Got your favorite, those almond croissants." I hadn't seen him alone since my daughter, and he moved across town 6 months ago. Most visits were family affairs, birthdays, holidays, loud Sunday lunches with too many dishes, and not enough chairs. So his unannounced drop-in felt both surprising and oddly comforting. I stepped aside and let him in, the faint scent of cinnamon trailing behind him as he passed. "Kitchen's warm," he said, settling into the stool by the counter. "Smells like vanilla in here." I laughed lightly. "I was just baking a few scones. You're lucky you caught them fresh." I busied myself with the kettle, pouring water over the ear-gray leaves, pretending not to notice how quietly he watched me move around the kitchen. But there was something about the way his eyes followed the way I reached for mugs, the way I wiped the counter that made me feel oddly aware of my own presence. Greg always had a calm energy. He never rushed through conversation or filled silence with empty words as I placed a cup in front of him. He leaned back slightly, fingers curled loosely around the mug. The lines around his eyes deepened when he smiled. Laugh lines, they called them. But there was something thoughtful behind them today. So I said, settling across from him, "What brings you by? Everything okay with Michelle?" He paused, took a slow sip. "Yeah, she's fine. Just at her mother's this week, her birth mother. I mean, they've been trying to reconnect lately." Oh, I looked down at the rim of my cup. "That's good. I didn't know. I wasn't sure how to bring it up. She said she wanted some space to figure things out. I thought I'd give her that." I nodded gently, choosing not to ask more. That was between them. Still, I could feel a small ache in my chest for my daughter and for him too. They always seemed steady, grounded, but even the strongest trees have roots that shift. "She ever talked to you about it?" he asked, eyes meeting mine across the steam between us. "Only once," I replied. "Years ago. She wondered what kind of woman her birth mother might be. I think she needed to see for herself." He looked down, nodding. Then silence returned, filled only by the gentle ticking of the old kitchen clock and the soft patter of a breeze brushing the window panes. After a moment, he smiled again. "I like being here. You make a home feel like home." Something about the way he said it made the air in the room feel heavier. Not in a bad way, just more present. Like every sound, every breath carried more meaning. I gave a quiet chuckle. "Well, after raising Michelle, this house has learned how to settle into itself." "You did a good job," he said. "With her, I mean, she's kind and strong. You pay for that." I felt the warmth creep into my cheeks, brushing them like sunlight. "She made me work for it, believe me." He laughed, then really laughed, the kind that fills a room. I watched the way his eyes crinkled, the way he leaned his arm onto the counter, relaxed but close. Close enough that if I reached I could touch the freckle on his wrist I'd noticed years ago but never thought much about until now. "Sometimes I wonder," he said after a moment, softer now, "what things would have been like if life had gone another way." I tilted my head. "What do you mean?" He shrugged slightly, looking into his cup. "Just choices, timing, people you meet when you're younger before you're ready to know what they really mean to you." My heart skipped, not from fear or confusion, but from a strange to distant recognition. I'd had those thoughts too. What if I hadn't met Michelle's father? What if I'd traveled more? What if someone like Greg had come into my life at a different time? "Life doesn't always give us the clearest roads," I said carefully. "Sometimes you only understand the turns in the rearview mirror." He looked at me, then really looked, and I saw something shift in his expression. Not desire, not regret, but something more tender, like understanding, like quiet admiration. The moment lingered the way light filters through leaves on a late afternoon. "I should help you with those dishes," he said suddenly, rising from his stool. "I'm almost done," I replied, standing as well. But he was already at the sink, rolling up his sleeves, revealing forearms flecked with flour from the bakery bag. He looked over his shoulder, grinning. "Let me at least dry. Feels wrong to just sit here while you do all the work." We stood side by side. our movements a rhythm in the soft hush of the kitchen, the occasional brush of elbows, a shared smile over a chipped mug. It was simple, innocent, but it stirred something deep in me, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not about Greg necessarily, but about myself, that I could still feel connection, still feel seen. He handed me the last plate, and for a moment our fingers touched. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. We just looked at each other, neither of us saying anything. Then he cleared his throat. I should probably get going. Of course, I said, stepping back. Thank you for the croissants and for the company. He nodded, eyes lingering on mine, a heartbeat longer than needed. Anytime. As the door closed behind him, the house returned to its quiet hum. But something was different. The space around me felt fuller, like it had absorbed that brief, unspoken exchange, and would hold it gently, tucked into its corners. I stood there in the stillness, wondering what exactly had passed between us, and if I'd ever feel it again. The next morning I found myself standing by the kitchen window, coffee in hand, watching the breeze dance through the garden. The events of yesterday still lingered in my chest, like the faint scent of his colon. Unexpected, unsettling, but not unpleasant. It wasn't about Greg, I told myself. Not really. It was about what he stirred in me. A sense of presence, of being noticed, of being remembered. I'd spent the last several years fading into the background of my own life. After my divorce, I filled my days with gardening, volunteering at the library, and tending to the same routines that made the house feel lived in. But somewhere along the way, I forgot how it felt to have someone see me beyond those routines. Greg, with his quiet warmth and unexpected attentiveness, had reminded me. I busied myself with laundry, trying not to overthink. But a knock at the door just before noon pulled me from my thoughts. It was Greg again. He stood on the porch with a sheepish smile and a small box of groceries. Hey, I didn't mean to drop by unannounced again, but I figured you might need these. You mentioned being low on butter yesterday. I blinked, genuinely touched. You remembered that? He shrugged. You said it while reaching for the scones. I noticed things. I let him in the same way I had the day before, except this time my hands didn't tremble when I took the bag from him. Something about his presence felt easier now, like we were continuing a conversation we hadn't finished. Can I stay for lunch? He asked. Only if you help make it, I replied, smiling. We moved through the kitchen like two old friends, slipping into an old rhythm. I chopped vegetables while he stirred soup, our small talk turning into deeper conversation. Stories from our childhoods, regrets we rarely shared aloud, people we missed, and roads not taken. I used to think love was something that came once and stayed, he said quietly as he sliced bread. But the older I get, the more I think it's something that returns to you in unexpected ways, if your heart's still open. His words settled deep. I leaned against the counter, wiping my hands on a towel. I know what you mean. I think sometimes we confuse routine with safety, but it can also make you forget you're still capable of wanting more. He looked at me, then really looked, and there was no mistaking the soft gravity in his eyes. You deserve more. That was when the air shifted again. Not in some reckless way, but in a slow, sincere acknowledgement that something had begun to take root. Not love, not longing, but awareness. Mutual respect layered with a quiet intimacy neither of us expected. After lunch, we sat on the back patio, the garden buzzing with bees and warm sunlight resting on our shoulders. I poured us both a second glass of iced tea, and we sat in companionable silence until he finally spoke again. Michelle and I were going through something, he said. I didn't speak, just waited. She's changed. Or maybe I have. We keep trying to meet each other in the middle, but it's like we're not speaking the same language anymore. That happens, I said gently. Sometimes people grow in different directions. Doesn't mean it's anyone's fault. He nodded, watching the leaves rustle above us. I just wish I didn't feel so alone in it. I placed a hand on his arm, not out of comfort but understanding. You're not, I said quietly, even if it feels that way right now. The way he looked at me in that moment made my heart ache. There was no pity in his eyes, no misplaced intention, just a kind of gratitude, a shared recognition that we were both navigating different forms of loneliness. He stayed a while longer before rising, brushing the crumbs from his pants. Thanks for letting me talk, he said. And for lunch, and for listening. You're always welcome here, I replied, meaning every word. After he left, I stood in the doorway for a long while the afternoon. In breeze carrying the scent of thyme and something softer, something that felt like a new beginning. I knew the lines we were walking were delicate, and I didn't know what came next, but I knew that I was waking up again, feeling again. And for the first time in a long while, that didn't scare me. Cha-Cha said. The following days passed with a quiet rhythm, but the stillness in the house no longer felt quite so hollow. I moved through my routines with a new kind of awareness of myself, of my thoughts, of the way even the simplest moments could carry weight. Greg hadn't come by again, and I hadn't expected him to, but his absence had presence, if that made sense. The memory of our conversation, the gentleness in his voice, the way he said, "You deserve more." It stayed with me. I tried to distract myself, cleaned the attic, sorted through old photo albums, even went to the bookstore just to be surrounded by stories that weren't my own. Still, something about that afternoon in the kitchen played in my mind like a record. I didn't know how to stop. Then on Friday the phone rang. "Hey," Greg said, voice soft but steady. "Do you have plans tonight? I'd like to cook for you at your place. Only if that's okay." I hesitated for half a second, just long enough to remember that I was allowed to say yes to things that made me feel alive. "I'd like that," I said. He arrived just after 6, arms full of groceries and a bottle of wine. He wore a navy button-down, sleeves rolled to the elbow, and a calm, focused expression that somehow made the kitchen feel different than usual. Less like a space for routine and more like a space for connection. "I thought pasta," he said, setting things down. "Simple, familiar." I nodded. Comfort food. As he moved around the kitchen, I watched the way he paid attention to everything. He peeled garlic slowly, cleaned as he went, set the table with care. There was something deeply comforting in it, not just in the action, but in the fact that he wasn't trying to impress me. He was just being himself. We talked while the pasta simmered, not about heavy things this time, but about favorite childhood meals, embarrassing school stories, little things that made us laugh. It felt easy, but under the ease was a current, an unspoken understanding that something unknowable lived between the lines. We ate by candlelight, not because we planned it that way, but because the bulb above the dining table had burned out, and neither of us felt like fixing it. The flickering glow softened everything. The room, our faces, even the words we didn't speak. After dinner, we lingered in the living room. I brought out a quilt, and we sat on the couch, close enough to feel each other's warmth, but not quite touching. The room was quiet but full. He glanced at me, his expression serious now. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Has anyone ever made you feel like you mattered? Not just for what you do or the roles you've played, mother, wife, neighbor, but just you?" The question surprised me, not because it was bold, but because it was so honest. I took a slow breath. "Not for a long time," I said. He nodded, then reached for my hand, hesitantly, as if offering it back if I needed him to. I didn't pull away. His hand was warm, his touch gentle, and the silence between us felt sacred. "I don't want to cross any lines," he said, voice low. "But I want you to know that you're seen. Not just as Michelle's mother. Not just as someone I drop in on when I need to talk." "Asked you?" My throat tightened. There was no script for this, no path I had walked before. Just the raw, quiet truth of someone offering me something real. I looked into his eyes and felt the weight of all the years I had spent invisible to myself. And now here was someone not seeking to take from me, but to simply be present with me. "Thank you," I whispered. We sat like that for a long time, hands folded between us, the flicker of candlelight dancing along the edges of something that hadn't yet been named. Eventually he stood. "I should go," he said, though there was no urgency in his voice. I walked him to the door, heart steady but full. At the threshold he turned, looked at me like he was memorizing something. "If you ever want company again," he said, "you don't have to wait for me to ask." I nodded. "I won't." And with that he left. I stood in the doorway long after he was gone, the cool night air brushing my skin, carrying with it something new. I wasn't sure what we were becoming. Friends, companions, something softer and more complicated. But I knew this. I was no longer asleep in my own life, and whatever came next, I was ready to meet it with open eyes. The following weekend arrived with quiet rain and the slow unfolding of spring. The house, once a refuge of solitude, now held echoes, his voice, his laughter, the soft creak of the stool where he sat by the counter. I had grown used to the quiet years ago, but now silence seemed to hold new meaning. It wasn't emptiness. It was expectation. Pause, not an ending. I didn't expect Great to call, and he didn't. But I sensed he would come, and I wasn't wrong. Late Sunday morning, while I was pruning the hydrangeas outside the kitchen window, I heard a car door shut. I turned to see him walking up the path, hands in his jacket pockets, a slight smile on his face despite the soft drizzle overhead. "Did I interrupt?" he asked. "Just trimming dead blooms," I said, brushing damp leaves from my gloves. "The rain makes everything feel alive again." He glanced toward the garden, then back at me. "So do you." I held his gaze a moment too long, startled by the gentle confidence in his voice, but I didn't deflect. "Not this time." I simply said, "Come inside. You'll catch a cold up here." We settled in the kitchen, now familiar and charged with a quiet history only we understood. "I made tea." He set the mugs, and we moved like we had before, each small act layered with meaning we no longer needed to explain. Over tea we spoke of life again as growing distance from Michelle, the weight of guilt that came with that, the uncertainty of what to do next. "I've been sleeping in the guest room," he said, fingers wrapped tightly around his cup. "We don't fight. We just pass each other like shadows." I said nothing at first, just reached out, resting my hand lightly over his. Marriage is complicated, even the good ones. And when something breaks, it doesn't mean it was always broken. He nodded slowly. "But sometimes something unexpected happens, and it wakes you up, makes you realize what you've missed, what you've needed." The air between us thickened, not with guilt, but with truth. This wasn't an affair. It wasn't betrayal. It was two people who had stumbled into a connection neither saw coming. One built not on desire, but on presence, understanding, respect. "I'm not asking for anything," he said softly. I want to be where I feel real, and that's here with you." I should have turned away, should have drawn a line, but I didn't, because I wasn't a fool and I wasn't a woman lost in fantasy. I was someone who had spent years giving, waiting, quietly fading into roles that never asked what I wanted. And now someone was asking, not demanding, not assuming, just asking. "Day," I said. "Not forever, not even for the night, just for the moment, just for the truth of what we both felt." We sat in the living room, shoulder to shoulder, the fire crackling softly. I laid my head gently against his arm, and he didn't move, just breathed, just stayed. His hand eventually found mine again, and we held each other quietly, as the rain fell outside, and the day dimmed into dusk. It wasn't romantic in the way stories often are. There were no grand declarations, no forbidden promises, just a woman rediscovering the depth of her own heart, and a man who saw her completely. When he finally stood to leave, he turned to me and said, "I don't know where this path leads, but I know it began the moment I knocked on your door." I walked him to the porch. The rain had stopped, leaving everything glistening and new. Before he turned to go, he took my hand once more and pressed a gentle kiss to my fingers. Not possessive, not hurried, just reverent. As I stood in the doorway watching him leave, I didn't feel lost or unsure. I felt whole, seen, alive in ways I hadn't been in years. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, whether he'd come back, whether life would draw new boundaries or erase old ones. But I knew Kuhai was again. And that, I realized, was the real surprise in the kitchen that day. Not Greg, not the conversation, but the quiet return of my own self, knocking softly after being gone for too long. And this time I opened the